There we go.
Okay, now it started.
This is a video to show you how to do the stain shading that you all saw on my site right here, and I'm going to show you the technique that I used to do it. Some of you said that you could never draw this freehand, and I'm going to show you how, and it's really quite simple. I neglected to film while I was doing my project, so I bought an old piece of pine wood from my local craft store to demonstrate how I got this effect. I just started with the center circle using a pencil, and remember, you can take this pencil and you can erase if you didn't like the line you drew, and you go like this. Now for the petals, almost like drawing a half heart, and you draw the size you like and just go around the center as so. And it's really eyeballing it the way you want your flower to look. And the way I see it is flowers' petals are not exactly even. They're not exactly perfect, so yours don't have to be. So once I did this, what I did was I chose to outline my petals with the paint that I was going to use as my accent color on the piece. And what I use is the Heritage Collection paint. It's an all-in-one paint. It's a chalk paint. It's got the bonding primer as well as the wax already in it. So it's a one-coat type of thing. And just to show you, again, I just took a thin brush and you freehand right along here. And again, the stain is going to help cover up any inconsistencies. And once I do that and I go through and I outline the entire flower with all of the leaves, as you can see right here that I did, let it fully dry. Don't leave it wet, but what I'm going to do is on the other side, I've already drawn a full flower and I've outlined it in the paint. Now what I chose to do with this is I use the Varathane wood stain and I use the antique white. It's just the brand that I choose to use. I'm sure you can use any brand. And of course, if you're gonna stain, don't forget to wear your gloves. I've forgotten to do that and had stain up into my fingernails for days. So what I chose to do was just take a little on your finger. Now you don't need a lot. And what I did was you take the white and you cover the whole area. And again, don't be too concerned about hitting the outline of the paint, because with this type of paint, it really wipes right off. Then you take a dry piece of your cloth and you just rub it in so it's more subtle. Now I'm using pine, so this is a more porous wood. So it's probably gonna take to the wood a little more than, say, if you were using an oak or a maple. But I rub it in so that I really take more off than I put in. Then I get my other rag, and now what I used for my darker stain that I liked, I used General Finishes gel stain, and I used a brown mahogany. Again, you can use whatever colors you choose. Now I don't put a lot on to start, and you start right in the middle where you want the darker section to be, and you'll notice that that's quite a lot. It goes very far, and you let it sit for a little bit, not too long, because you don't want hard edges. And then what I started doing is working from inward out and shading and blending so that it's lighter towards the edges and darker towards the inside. And what I did was I made sure that I covered all of it with at least a little bit of shading from the dark stain. I didn't want the blatant white showing through. And you'll notice that even if it's inconsistent, what's good about this is you go back and you take another little dab. And you maybe dab a little more there. And again, you take the clean side of the cloth and you start to press in with the shading. And you bring it out to the edges. And you just keep working it until you get the look you like. And again, I think I need a little bit more stain on the center. And again, the pine seems to be a little more porous, so it's really taking the stain quickly. And what you can do, if you don't like the effect, is go back and you take a little dab of the white and you can soften up some of the edges. And I just kind of dab it around. Oh, and you work it in. Now you've worked the white in. And you kind of soften the edges and then you go back around. And you take some more of your dark. There you go. And again, you just keep working it out to the edges until you get really what you like. And sometimes you have to press a little hard and kind of get it worked in. And what I was just going for was a little darker in the circle in the middle and a little lighter on the side. Now if you want, you could put a little more white and work it on in. It's really up to you. What I suggest is when you do a couple of leaves, get up, stand and take a bird's eye view and take a look at your piece that way. And you can always go back, and I did on mine, you can always go back and rework some stain on one or more of the petals and shade darker or lighter where you want it. But my goal was to make it darker at the top and lighter in the bottom. And here, and we just start the same process again with another petal. And we get it worked in. And again, I'm not too concerned about getting it on the paint or bleeding it into another petal because you're going to go over it. And you're going to be putting white into this petal as well, so I'll just bleed some of it into there. And then another thing I did was, when I'm working with a smaller piece, what I did was just took a regular angled brush that I got at the craft store, and I would take the stain and do this because it's easier to kind of get it around the edges this way than with your finger to get it, right on the edge. And then I just take this with your finger and you start working out as you go. And of course, trying to bleed lighter as you go further down the petal. And you'll start to notice how much you can put on the brush or on the petal depending on what kind of darkness or lightness you want. There I kind of loaded it a little bit more than I probably wanted to. So I'm going to just kind of go in and wipe it off. And then remember, it's not, if you get it up on the paint, I did go back over with my paintbrush when I was finished with the entire piece. And where I kind of smudged, I just quickly outlined with the paint to kind of, get that covered up or get it a little even. So then here, it was a little darker than I wanted. So I take some white and I put it on the bottom of the petal because that's where I want it lighter. And then I start working upwards from the bottom of the petal and work it in. And there, it lightened it up more to the consistency of what I wanted and made the edges less hard. So then I would take just a little bit more, and I think I'm going to brush it off. And again, up on this edge, where I want it a little bit darker, I'm going to do that again. And I'm going to start the shading process all over again so that the top of the flower is darker and gives me that look that I want. And then maybe around the edges I might want it a little darker. And what you'll notice is maybe you'll just have to keep switching the rag to get to a piece that doesn't have the stain on. And for this one I'm going to go another round of white. And it's a, what you'll notice, it's a process. And you will kind of find your flow and get it to the consistency that you want, or the look that you want, let's say. And here I want the bottom lighter, so I just blend in a little bit more of the white, and I'm going to keep working it until I get it to the consistency I want. And that's how I achieved the look that I got. And again, you keep working the edges and get it to where you want it. And then what you do, when you're finished with all of your flowers, you will then take, what I did was the dark stain, and I'd use a brush in these areas, and you stain the outside your dark stain color to really highlight your petals. Here you go. And make it really look the way you want. And you just put your stain in. And again, you can go through and you can repaint and re-highlight the edges. And then here for the larger parts, I can just use my finger. And again, you'll see that it's a process. It's a process to get the tones that you want. And it's a process to get the shading that you want. But again, you can get up and take a bird's eye view, see where you maybe have more shading than you wanted, or maybe not enough shading. And it's okay if you get a little bit in here, because I'm going to cover this flower with white again, that petal, and I'm going to go over it with dark shading, so it's not a tragedy if this happens. But this is actually how I got this outlook and this effect. And again, I would start with a piece of wood, the same type of wood that you're going to use on your furniture. Get a small piece of wood like this at the craft store, and practice on this first. You will find you'll get a flow, and you'll get the consistency you want, you'll get the shading you want, and then I would start on the large piece. But that's it.